access different timeline versions of yourself? So I had somebody ask me this recently, so I'm going to talk about how I learned to do it. And just like with anything, okay, use your intuition, discernment, and just because I do things a certain way doesn't mean that that's your path, okay? But this is how I did it. So when I was waking up, spiritual awakening journey, I was having a very difficult time hearing my higher self. And I was working through a lot of other things too, like confidence and self-esteem and empowerment. And I said, okay, well, if I can't hear her, I'm going to work backwards and help heal my inner children, because I had a lot of trauma and PTSD that I had not processed through. That was one of the reasons that I was having to work on self-confidence and empowerment and self-esteem. And I said, well, if I work backwards, maybe I'll be able to hear her. Because ultimately what I was doing was teaching myself how to become a higher self, okay? And what I didn't realize at the time was, okay, first, that you have multiple inner children within you. It's not just one inner child. They all have different experiences, different perspectives. They have different trauma that they live through. Just like children outside of you, you got to talk different to a 5-year-old than you would a 12 or 15-year-old. They need different tools, different types of love and support. And a 5-year-old can have the same type of pain experience as a 15-year-old, but you're going to have to speak to them in different ways. So once I understood that concept, then I could go in with specific things and help them heal on the level that they needed healing with. And what I didn't know, the other thing, was that I was teaching myself how to timeline jump. So now what I do when I help people with inner child healing is it goes beyond like psychology, okay? I love psychology. Psychology is really helping you with your mental body and helping you process through the memory. That's not what we're doing. What we're doing is actually jumping back in time and space, and we're in meditation with one another, and the client and me go into your Akashic Records and actually speak with you when you were a child, back in time and space. Okay, and time's not linear, but it's called timeline jumping, and we're actually healing your Akashic Records through doing that. And then that inner child becomes a new higher self version as well, and you absolve that karmic lesson or that trauma or the PTSD out of your system as a whole. And it can also help you with different timelines as well. If you help your inner child or inner children heal through certain things here in this incarnation, if you have other incarnations that have dealt with similar things, your inner children from this timeline can help them, and vice versa. That's known as soul fragment healing, okay? So when I started to heal my inner children on that level, I started to become much more integrated, and then I could hear my higher self so much more clearly because I learned how to be a higher self. Then I started noticing there's multiple higher selves, just like your inner children. There's you a year from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now. And that's where people get tripped up sometimes, because you're trying to talk to multiple higher selves, which that's great. We love that. But sometimes you need to talk to one that's like closer to you and your experience. When I learned how to heal my inner children, again with the timeline jumping, then I started having different timelines come forward out of my Akashic Records asking me for healing. And then I started having different timeline versions of me coming forward to offer me mentorship, and me being able to channel different gifts and abilities from different timelines. And I learned how to do that through working with my inner children, because timelines are very there's no structure to them, okay? There's not a lot of framework for you to learn how to do that, because it's not tangible for you to do that, because it's so far out of conceivability from the societal programming and things that we have experienced here or not experienced, okay? Working with your inner children is very tangible, okay? Because it's you in this lifetime. So once you learn how to access them, timelines start making more sense to you, because it's like a hop, skip, and a jump to just talk to a different version of you from a different time and space. But you also have to be working with your inner children and helping them heal and tap into their magic and imagination, because it takes you getting in your imagination to be able to even perceive different timelines. So the reason that I utilize inner child healing as the framework of everything that I do is because it makes these esoteric concepts much more understandable to your now experience to go in that way. And somebody was asking me this morning, how do you even get started working with your inner children? One, understanding that there's multitudes of inner children. okay? Because then it makes it easier to heal, because instead of you trying to heal like your whole entire childhood, we're breaking it up into these micro bits, and it makes it a lot more easy to do it that way. But you're going to take something in your life, okay, a behavioral pattern, a trigger, something going on with your interpersonal relationships or your finances, and ask yourself, how far back can I remember with this thing? Whether it be a memory, an experience, something that happened with your parents or your guardians or your siblings, and start there, because it's a very pointed direction. It's not like we're just going in meditation waiting for an inner child to speak with us. We're going in with an intention to specifically heal things. I will say though, that I told this person that if you are newer to inner child healing, what we don't want to do is just go in there and try and like uproot all this trauma, because that's very intense. You got to imagine these are like actual children within you. Sometimes having fun is shadow work and very healing, because there's oftentimes a lot of empaths and light workers who have had so much responsibility put on them, or maybe they were, not in great relationships with their parents and guardians, or, they weren't allowed to have fun or didn't have the resources to have fun. So you doing that sometimes is the more beneficial thing. Like when I'm going in to help people heal through their Akashic Records with their inner children, sometimes we're not even talking about the trauma. Sometimes what we are doing is creating safety and security and showing them that magic is fun and that they are allowed to have fun, and that they can drop the weight, the heaviness of all of those things that happen to them. And what we do sometimes instead of trauma healing is we release them from energetic timestamps. That is your inner child thinking that trauma is still happening to them. That is where your behavioral patterns and triggers come from, because they think mom and dad are still yelling at them. They think that they're still being oppressed in some type of way. They think that they're still being bullied, and you're running that programming because they're stuck in that time and space. So we come in and we explain to them like, hey, did you know there's an actual adult version of you over here living in a completely different life that's not being subjected to those things anymore? And that's where we liberate them, we free them from those paradigms that we're in. But starting and building a relationship and spending time with them, figuring out what you would have liked to do as a child, or asking them, what do you want to do? Maybe it's coloring or going on the swings or blowing bubbles or watching a fun magical movie. Like start there before you start trying to dig in and uproot all that trauma stuff. But then when you are ready to do the trauma work, the shadow work, go in with a pointed direction and remember that you are speaking to a child. Okay, that's what I tell my clients all the time. Like they're trying to talk to them like adults. I'm like, you literally have to talk to them like they are a 5-year-old and break it down on that conceptual level, because you are timeline jumping. It is not talking to a memory. It is talking to an actual child within you in your Akashic Records. So I would love to hear in the comments if this resonated with you, if it helped you have different levels of understanding, if you have questions, if you would like to do an inner child healing session together, and this is where we go into your Akashic Records and you actually speak to one of your inner children. It's very eye-opening for people when we do it, because they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that they're actual like a whole different being. And I'm like, yeah, they have their own consciousness level. I can teach you how to do that as well. It's a technique that I have cultivated and that I've used for myself and in multitudes of clients, and it's something that you can take with you. Not only for your inner children, but also your different timelines. Okay, you can utilize it in many different capacities. But I hope you have a very magical day, and I hope this helps you in healing your inner children.